Hello, everyone. I'm Marian Kaufmann, and I'm very happy to welcome you today. I work as a workshop presenter in the UX UI team at Schwarz IT. For all of you who don't know Schwarz IT, we are the IT service provider for the Schwarz Group, which consists of Lidl and Kaufland, and is the fourth largest retailer in the world. Also, because of our size, we decided to start our own cloud called STACKIT. Therefore, I'm very happy to welcome my colleague Dominik Kress live from Berlin, who will now give you insights into the STACKIT AppCloud. If you have any questions for Dominik, please feel free to post them into the YouTube chat. If you don't see the chat, please note that you have to log into YouTube first. So then I wish you a lot of fun with Dominik's presentation, and Dominik, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Marian, and welcome to this talk about STACKIT AppCloud. Nice to have you here. We want to talk about how you can host your application in just 5 minutes within our STACKIT with the STACKIT AppCloud runtime environment. And yeah, you could also tell it or talk about how to host your stuff online fast, not coming to Netflix end of May. So my name is basically Dominik, and I'm the product owner of the STACKIT AppCloud. When you want to present yourself in typical meetups or conferences, you typically name your free hashtags. Mine would be in this level, like open source, DevOps, and people. You can always talk to me about API design, history fun facts, electric guitars, or Liverpool FC. Why API design? Well, I was also an author for a book about GraphQL. So if you are interested in GraphQL, I can highly recommend that as well. But now we want to talk about not GraphQL, but cloud, and especially what is STACKIT's AppCloud. There can be a whole ecosystem behind one word, and it's the same for our STACKIT AppCloud. Our AppCloud is not just one specific product. It's a whole platform. It's a whole ecosystem around a specific platform. And in this ecosystem, we have a focus core, which is a Cloud Foundry instance, and a lot of data services connected to this Cloud Foundry, to this Cloud Foundry platform, in order to host your app and give your app specific services to it. But there's also a lot of context around our core business, our core platform, which is, we're doing user management for that platform. We're doing secret management. We have a console UI, you'll also see later. We have an autoscaler, making sure that your applications always have the right scale for them. We have a custom domain service for, custom domains for your application, and we have much more. So this AppCloud is not just one specific product I want to present to you, but a whole lot of different products that are managed within STACKIT. Always telling a bit about about the theory behind it. We can do that later because I know all of you are here to see it in action. My promise was, can we actually manage to host an application within STACKIT and within the STACKIT AppCloud in just 5 minutes? And as you can see, I'm jumping a bit ahead because I'm always eager to show people how easy and how fast it is to work with our AppCloud. So we will directly dive into a demonstration where I make sure that we will upload an app in just 5 minutes, hopefully. I'm very sure that we can manage that. And afterwards, we can talk about more about the theory behind it, how we actually enable our customers to achieve this, and we will talk a bit more about in what direction we are heading with this ecosystem with our STACKIT AppCloud. But let's go to the interesting part. Let's go to showing if my bet of 5 minutes was good or not. First off, there are some prerequisites to it. As I already said, behind our AppCloud, there's Cloud Foundry. And Cloud Foundry has a lot of cool example projects, example applications that you can basically use in order to have an application to host in just some minutes. If you just look for Cloud Foundry sample applications, you will see there are for various different applications, different examples or different tech stacks. For example, the Spring Music one is one that I'm always using because Java. We have a lot of Java in our company, and I guess a lot of other people as well, or a lot of other companies as well. So Spring is always a good first example. It's really just that. It's a Spring application, just normal default, nothing special about that application. I could start that just now. The only thing that is special within these applications is this manifest.yaml, because that is basically where you collect the information of of your application that you want to give to your infrastructure. I did the same for me. I already downloaded it and have it here as Spring Music. I didn't change anything within that. I just wanted to shorten it up, so I downloaded it earlier. Made git clone, and this manifest.yaml looks exactly the same as the one online. The only difference is that I uncommented this one line here. Let's have a look at it. What do we do here? In the beginning, we name our application because this is then the identifier of the application within our space. We set a memory limit. We add a random root, which is just to randomize the route that our AppCloud will in the future give us directly automatically. We will see that in action in just a couple of minutes. Nope. We will see that in just a couple of minutes, and this random route just adds a random text to the app name to make sure that we didn't upload this Spring Music somewhere else and created a root for Spring Music somewhere else, so that there's an issue in the routing. That's why the random root is here. Then there's the path to our build. It is Gradle wrapped, so we have to do a Gradle build before that. And then here are our environment variables that we want to push in. You could add a lot of environment variables here through the manifest.yaml. All we need is just the no auto reconfiguration and defining the JRE version. Yeah, you can also add all of this information that you add in a manifest YAML within parameters when pushing your application against our AppCloud. So that is all that we prepared beforehand, just a normal Spring app that shows different music albums. And this manifest YAML, making it a bit special, preparing it for getting deployed to our AppCloud. So besides that, what we definitely need is an AppCloud project or a STACKIT project with an AppCloud runtime registered to it. So we can just take one of our projects, which is a demo project within our STACKIT portal. So as you can see now, within one of the STACKIT projects, our demo project here, we can provision different runtimes, different components, work basically with the STACKIT in general. We want to have our AppCloud, so we want to have our Cloud Foundry instance. All we have to do now is create this Cloud Foundry organization for us. Basically, an org within Cloud Foundry is just a project structure. It is not anything logical, or well, it is something logical, but not something physical in that way around. So you can name your organization whatever you want, and then you can have developers assigned to this specific organizations, and then have the accesses to this organization planned or focused within that one organization. So it's basically your Cloud Foundry runtime project. Let's just name it Meetup for the beginning, and a very small one will be sufficient for us. And next to orgs, Cloud Foundry, and with that our AppCloud, also have spaces. Spaces are again, a logical kind of how you structure your application. For example, you could, if you have a micro front-end architecture, you could just take the whole micro front-end platform or microservice platform as an organization, and then the different products within your microservices, the different services as your spaces. We are usually doing it like, having one product as an organization, and then the different environments within those spaces. But this is nothing that we dictate. So you could add new spaces, you could remove other spaces, and so on. Let's take the default one, and we have the Meetup organization and dev, QA, and prod as a space within that. So if we go into that, that's directly provisioned. Now we have to shortly wait until it's fully provisioned, and here we get our API endpoint in order to log in with our CF-CLI. So the CF-CLI is basically our tool to work with our AppCloud, our tool to push against the AppCloud, configure it accordingly. It's basically the kubectl of Cloud Foundry. I installed it beforehand. I mean, this is also something that you have to do before you start working on. So we could say this is also included in the time to push your app in 5 minutes. But in general, you need the CF-CLI, and then you can work against the API endpoint. So provisioning the application or provisioning the Cloud Foundry runtime didn't take a lot of time, as you've seen. I can tell you that downloading the CF-CLI also doesn't take much time. So all we have to do now is to log in against our API, and this we will do just with the link that we copied. Now we have to get a passcode. This is in order to have the login with our central STACKIT IDP. So I have to select my account, and then I will be logged in. Yes. One more second. Sign in. And here's my authorization code. This I can now use to get authorized. And here you already see my different orgs. For example, here's the Meetup org that I just created. So I'll select that org. Then I can select my space. In this case, I'll select the dev space just to test it out. And here you see the details. We registered against our Cloud Foundry API, against our AppCloud API with my user, and then we are in the organization of Meetup that we just created in the space of dev. So since we want to push our Spring Music application that we downloaded beforehand to just make it available over our AppCloud, all we now have to do is go into the space of our code where it's located. So it was Spring Music, just like that. Then we have to build it, because you have seen that that we are directly looking at the build of it. So hopefully that's working out. All right, the build is successful. This means that the reference to the jar file that we set in our manifest is now successfully built up, and all we have to do now is cf push, and all it does is now read out the, oh, that is not what usually should happen, but here you can already see that he uses the Spring Music name that we have in the area of in the manifest.yaml, as well as the path to the jar file. And he also took in the 1 GB as an limit, as well as the environment variables. And he wanted to create the root down here. Here you can also see Spring Music as the application name, and this is the random part that we added later with our random root. So now I'm a bit curious why I'm not authorized to perform the requested action, just to make sure we are connecting, we are in the right network right now. So let's do a CF push. Yeah, I have to re-log in just to make sure. So this is a part of our internal network structure. Oh, come on. That's the problem with live demos, is it? That you always run into some problems. So here we were. All right. All we have to do is now CF login with that. And we can't even log in right now. Connection was reset by a peer. Oh, yeah. That's an interesting part. So, all right. Then we end our Proxifier session again, and we retry it. Yeah, temporary authentication code. So, I think we are still in my 5 minutes. Now I have my next authentication code. I'm authenticated, meetup, dev, CD, idea projects, and Spring Music, just like that. And then we do a CF push. And hopefully it is still not successful. Maybe it is because my org is somehow broken. Let's do another one. Meetup 2. All right, let's go for a small one, same spaces. And then we just have to wait for a second. Good. Okay. So as you can see, it usually directly pulls all of the information, but all of this information you can also directly push in with with parameters. And at the end, you will get this root that he directly creates for you. And with this root, you will be directly able to access your application if it is not failing. So let's try it again, because we are in a special mood. Authentication code. All right. So, wait, I have to go in here and log in for our passcode. That one, hopefully. And then we go for Meetup 2, which is now free. Then we go for dev. And then we do our CF push again. And it failed again. So all I can now say is maybe we try it out with another org and space. So passcode. Oh yeah, I'm always typing in the right one, the same one. Good to see. So let's go on for the playground stage, and then we do yeah. Now we are logged into the playground stage with the targeted space Kress, which is the only space that I have access to in our playground. And hopefully, if I do a CF push now, we should have more luck. Yes, and we have more luck. So that was a bit off the rails for those 5 minutes, but this is normally what should happen. As you can see, he is now basically packaging all the files that we have in our local files, especially our Spring Music jar. So he's packaging his jar file, and then he uploads the jar file into our data system or into our cloud in order to have it locally so that he can stage the application. And hopefully in a second, takes a bit time. All right, here you can then see that he's downloading build packs. Build packs within our AppCloud are a bit like the Docker files. They are collecting all of the information and all of the dependencies that are needed in one application. So, for example, if we have a Java application, as we have in this example right now, we need to download our Java build pack and then wrap our jar file within that Java build pack. It has, the required JDK and all of that with it. The same goes for Node.js build packs, for example, that then deliver a Node.js and an NPM instance in order for the application to be able to run. Same goes for, Go as a dependency or PHP, static files, Nginx. As you can see, there are a lot of build packs that are wrapping your different tech stacks and applications that you post against or push against our app cloud. And the wrapping of your application is automatically done. So besides, instead of using Docker on Kubernetes, where you have to write your Docker file on your own, here all of this work is done by these build packs. You can also create your own build packs and register them as well in our app cloud. And there's a lot of community work going on to get more build packs than just those registered. Yeah, you could also just push Docker images if you want to have more control over your application and how your application is wrapped. So Docker images are also supported because at the end there's a run C within our app cloud, which just allows to run basically every container. So he's downloading all of the app packages and then he wraps this application. And then he's uploading the application into one of the managed VMs that our AppCloud has underneath. Here, uploading the whole build artifacts, and then he's starting up the application down here. So here are the information that we now have. As you see, here's the root that was automatically created with the random text to it. And we can now just have a look at this application. If we go in here, and as you can see, we are in the Spring Music application. The Spring Music application basically is nothing but a collection of different albums. So I could now delete or edit one of those albums. Let's delete some. And then the first one is Are You Experienced from Jimi Hendrix, which is really a great album. But the problem now is, so first off, it was a bit troublesome, but as you can see, I didn't do much in order to have the application started, besides the initial technical troubles that I had with my network connection for this one instance. But besides that, hosting our application is pretty easy. But you might now say, all right, especially if we restart our application, we can easily do this because I'm still logged into this specific state, to this specific org and the space. I can just now restart my application with the name that I gave this application. So CF restart and then Spring Music will restart this application. And he's stopping it. And as a second, he's restarting it. now insert some thinking music, MP3. So if he now restarts this application, waiting and waiting for the health checks to be available again, you will see that he, yeah, now we are back up. It just takes more time until it gets the response from the CF API. Today, my network connection seems to have some fun. As you can see, we have Nevermind again on the top and your experience back here. So it didn't persist the state of our Spring music application. And how could it? Because, you know, it's a cloud application, and cloud applications need to have data services like databases behind it in order to persist their data. So how do we, oh yeah, now it also gets the response of the restart of the application. And also the interesting thing is it's still the same route. So even restarting the application won't change the route it registered for your application, which is quite important. Yeah, so if we now have a look at what should we do in order to persist our data, for this we need data services. So here we have a marketplace that you can use as a self-service in order to get new data services registered against your applications or against your application space within the AppCloud. So we just have to wait until he fetches the marketplace information. Usually this also doesn't take that much time, but hopefully at least you can hear me still. So here you now can see a lot of entries of different data services. For example, we are now looking for a specific service, which is, let's go for the PostgreSQL down here. So a PostgreSQL database service. We want to see more details of this specific PostgreSQL service. And as you can see, we have different service plans for that. A replica set in different sizes or single instances. For us now, a single instance is absolutely good enough. So what I now have to do is just create the service create a service instance out of this service catalog by just doing a cf create service and then listing the service that I want, which is the PostgreSQL service, and then I list the service plan I need to it, and then I list the service name of it, which is in this case just musicdb, just like that. So if we start that, he's directly creating the service instance, and as you can see, the service will be started, or the service creation, service instance creation will be started. It is basically, also an ongoing asynchronous process. So if we just check in with musicdb, CF services musicdb, we will get the information of our service that is in the process of being created. And here is the status of it, create in progress. While this takes some time, we can look into another thing that we are doing with AppCloud, because as you can imagine, just working in the CLI the whole day can be pretty boring, especially if something goes wrong, as we have seen earlier. We also have something for that. If you go within your space and then you can open the console of the specific space, we now have to switch the spaces within our within our context here, since we are no longer working in that project. But this is basically Stratos, and Stratos is a very nice tool that is a console UI. So it's a bit like in console.cloud.google.com. It's a representation of the CF API. It's a representation of the CF CLI, and whatever you can do within the CF CLI, you can also do within here. So for example, now we're again in the playground space with Kress as our playground org with Kress as our space. And here we have Spring Music, which is the application that we just uploaded and deployed. You can, for example, also see our memory limit being 1 GB, as we set it in our manifest.yaml, and so on. All you can see here are more information about your application. You can directly restart it, stop it, restage it, or visit it. Yeah, as we see, and again, your same route as before. You can look at the individual instances. Currently, we don't have much load on it, so it's just has one instance. Here's the route that we registered in that was automatically registered for our application. And here's the log stream with all of the information of our application, or all of the log information of our application, especially if something goes wrong. As you can see, all of this, since this is just a representation, visual representation of your Spring of your CF CLI, you can also just get the log stream of your application from CF logs and then your application name. Besides that, also here we will see in the future our service instance that will be bounded to our application. Here are our environment variables for the application that we could also edit. We just have to restage our application. And here's even some, some audit events where you can see that I requested the start and the stop for my application just a few minutes ago. And here's also an overview of our services that we create. And if we now go to Playground again, we see the music DB, which is the space that we just created. And it's still in state create. This is can be seen in this side, and here's the create. If it's created as a green one, you can also create more services in here by just using the marketplace, and yeah, you can just go in your application and directly bind it also. So if we go in services and then create it and go to marketplace service, we can select our service. And for example, let's add a log me, which is the elk stack, to monitor our application. We can select the cluster and just go on like that, adding some binding parameters. And if we go to next, it would directly bind our, create our service instance and bind it. But we already have our service. We just have to wait a second more. We can also do it in here and see if our service is already still create in progress. So today things just take a bit more. I mean, patience is also a good thing. Also, an interesting part in here is that you can add security groups. So in this security groups, you can directly influence, what connections are available for your specific org, and then restrict, for example, incoming IP addresses and so on. So there's a lot of things that you can do within our AppCloud. For example, wait for a service to be provisioned successfully. At least I know now that I have to also create a service instance earlier in order to have a fallback for this as well if things are slower than usual. You never stop learning. So, all right, still the create in progress. So what we have to do after the creation of the service instance is basically bind the service instance to our specific application. As you've seen in this overview, there can be multiple service instances that are not yet bound to your application, and at the end, those, great, succeeded, perfect. So yeah, at the end, you have to get the information on how you can connect to the service instance into your application environment. And that's basically what we are doing with the service bind. So if we go on and do the CF and then bind service, and then we go for our service name, no, for our app name first, which is Spring Music. So, and then we go next for our service name, which is the music DB. And then we bind this together. And what we are doing is injecting automatically the connection strings to our new service instance into the environment variables of our Spring Music application environment. And then within Spring Music, within the code of the application, we can just access this information that we automatically injected and connect to our database. The Spring Music example was nice enough to already have a lookup for this environment fields. So if we now restage our application in order to give him the new environment variables, then it will automatically have a persisted database beneath it. So staging it up. Now it is doing all of the process of getting the build packs back together and uploads the artifact, the wrapped artifact again against our AppCloud. So, and restarts the application. Good. So, hopefully everything is this time fine. Okay, uploading droplets. We can also have directly a look into our environment variables right here within variables, and then you can see, oh, not yet because it's still restaging. All right, and then we go for cfenv and then Spring Music to get our environment variables. And within here, you can see the recap services for our connected data services with, a credential. Don't copy this, please. I will delete it anyways directly afterwards. So this is basically the automatic setup. And if we now go in here and we delete our Nevermind and Pat Sounds from the Beach Boys and Marvin Gaye, and then we restart our application with restart and Spring Music, just like that. It's stopping again, and then it's restarting. We will directly see that the state now is persisted. Very cool. So still waiting on the app. So I have to say I lost my bet because it was overall at the end more than 5 minutes. But I hope you still thought that it is, yeah, it's still pretty easy to work with our AppCloud. So now, again, we restarted. We're still on the same route, and you can see that IO experience is now the first one, which means that we didn't switch back to the old state. So that's persisted. You can now do many more fancy things to your application. You can add more service instances. You could SSH in your application with CFSSH. As you've seen, you can give out your environment variables. You could even create service keys for your service instances and then SSH into your services over your application space and so on. So there's a lot of things that you can easily do through the CFCLI against your application. And now the interesting part is, how did we do this? How did we manage to enable us to normally push our applications and upload our applications in just 5 minutes, sometimes a bit more, but I mean, we still set a whole cloud environment, set up a whole cloud environment, and registered data services from 0 to hero in a short time, more time than usually. So the AppClouds core basically is a Cloud Foundry instance. As I already said, Cloud Foundry is basically a very, very complex and big collection of components. So it's a very big platform itself. And the idea behind Cloud Foundry, Cloud Foundry initially was created from Pivotal, and back then they didn't, they weren't called Pivotal, but the vice president of Pivotal created this Cloud Foundry haiku here, which is basically shown on every Cloud Foundry conference and basically everywhere. So I also have to show it in this meetup. It's a legal requirement when using the Cloud Foundry. So the haiku goes as written here. Here's my source code. Run it on the cloud for me. I do not care how. And basically, that's the whole idea behind Cloud Foundry, abstracting away everything from the cloud in order to you being able to just have source code and then saying somebody run it on the cloud. And so you don't have to care about anything besides that. In order to achieve this, you could basically say Cloud Foundry is an opinionated open source cloud native platform. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for having me. No, fun. It's basically an operating system of the cloud, and that means it's not just one thing, it's a complete stack of different components from the application level where your application is, is exposed down to the infrastructure as a service level. That could even be your, bare metal beneath. And it should abstract away all of the infrastructure stuff for you as an application developer in order for you as an application developer to be able to develop applications. This is achieved with a lot of different components. We could really, I won't get too much into detail of the Cloud Foundry components. There's a lot of good documentation of that out in the wild because, as I said, it's a complete open source platform with a really, really good community behind it. And there's very thick books about all of the individual components itself. So here's just a short overview over the different components and how Cloud Foundry is able to, create this magic of our AppCloud. So the routing, as you've seen, it automatically it creates routes and then registers those routes against your application. And those routes are also, the load balancing entry point for your applications, application instances, and so on. This is all done by a Go router and a TCP router that is responsible for the routing within Cloud Foundry. Authentication is done with an OAuth 2 server. This is called UAA, user and access and something else. User authentication and access management is the thing behind it. And that's also a huge topic in its own, the whole user management, but that's also abstracted away from you as an application developer. Then we have our app lifecycle and system state managed with Cloud Controller. and with Diego. Diego is a bit like the Docker within Cloud Foundry or within the Cloud Foundry world. And the cloud controller is working with Bosch, which is a bit like the Kubernetes of the Cloud Foundry world. Like if you're a Cloud Foundry expert, you might be shocked of how I simplify all of this. But yeah, this is basically just an introduction to it. So beneath it, we have the app execution, which are different Diego cells. Diego, takes a VM and then wraps this VM into a Diego cell, installs everything that is needed in order to run the applications on it, as for example the runC container runtime that will enable Cloud Foundry to run Docker images within it. And then we have a blob store, for app storage. There's some services like, as you have seen, registered over service brokers. You can also provide your own user-generated services there over with Cloud Foundry. And for the messaging, there's an ATS message bus underneath. And then we have the log aggregator to basically get all metrics and all logging together into one, big aggregated state, so that we can use it over the whole Cloud Foundry. So those are the different components. As I already said, if you're interested into more technical deep dives of how Cloud Foundry, the AppClouds core element, basically works, I can just recommend you Google it. There's really, really a lot of great stuff. For example, cloudfoundry.org has its own big documentation, and that's really good to read. So yeah, talking a bit about the state of our AppCloud currently and how our AppCloud in general works. We also always have a bit of, our view into the future, and are oriented on what is basically the vision and, the idea behind where AppCloud should be in a couple of months, a couple of years. Because as you all know, STACKIT is very young, and we have a very, very steep learning curve. But we also use this very steep learning curve in order to become better and, to really learn a lot out of our MVP state, now our MVP state, which is the next viable product, and then go from next viable product to next viable product and come better every time. In order to become the cloud experts in the future that we are really aiming for our internal customers as well as our external market in the future. So what is the vision for our STACKIT AppCloud and for our AppCloud runtime? There are basically three big vision strategies, or big 3 points that we want to address in the near future with our STACKIT AppCloud. Again, a bit from minimum viable product to the maximum viable product, which will never be achieved because there's always some screws we can, we can work on within such a big, evolving, moving environment and ecosystem as our AppCloud is. But the big 3 vision points that we have for our next around about 2 to 3 years are definitely starting with the first one, which is stabilize. In this live demo, you definitely have seen that there are some areas within our AppCloud that we ourselves are not as happy with as we definitely want to be. And there's still a lot of learnings that are hidden within the daily development and the daily work with our AppCloud. And we definitely have to stabilize our platform more and more. And this is our biggest and our most important focus right now. Because for infrastructure product, stability is not just a requirement, it is the absolute baseline. We want to be this no issues platform where you don't have to think about your infrastructure at all. You just do a CF push. And if you then have to report incidents because the infrastructure is not stable and has some issues at times, this is not the vision that we have for this product. The vision is really, or for this platform, the vision is really that you don't have to care about anything, and this requires us to be as stable as possible. And this is really our biggest motivation right now, to take all of the learnings that we had in the last few weeks, in the last few months, in the last year, and improve and improve and improve and stabilize to at the end have a really, really good, really stable product and a really stable platform. Things included in the stabilized part is, for example, working on our network strategy in order to not run into those network issues that I locally had right now today, making that more stable as a good example. The second point is simplify. As we want to be this easy to use platform that everybody can use in order to show their very cool app idea from the first starter for a university project or something like that, to the most experienced engineer in our house that just wants to show a POC of a cool vision he has for his team or whatever. We want to really have this experience that you don't have to think about, how do I now set up my cloud infrastructure? You're just like, I have this awesome app idea, I have this awesome small code snippet, I have this awesome POC, this awesome app, and now I need to host it somewhere where it can scale and where it can become bigger. We want to really get into that position that you then directly look at AppCloud and you get your needs answered. And so for us, really, everybody should be able to use our platform as intuitively and as fast and as easy as possible. Even our grandmas in this perspective as one of the personas that we have. So we really focus in our second big vision step on making this platform as easy as possible, as understandable and as intuitive as possible. How we can achieve this? How can we achieve this? For example, we are already planning on concepting on, for example, a custom domain service, as I just named it earlier, as one of the components that that are part of our AppCloud ecosystem, where you just type in when you register your application or your AppCloud org, you can just type in the root that you want to have or the domain that you want to have for your application. And then we directly automatically map our internal technical root against your custom domain. And you don't have to think about, how do I get custom domains? How do I register myshop.schwarz? And, how do I do the whole certificate management? This is like a big part for us where we really want to enable people to just have all of the certificate management and all of that also abstracted away from them. And there are many more projects and ideas like that, how we can in general simplify the experience of our application platform. And the next part, the last part in this revision step, is the extend, because having just a simple platform that is just opinionated and dictates everything for you in order to make it as simple as possible is not really enough for cloud experts. And we at some point definitely want to be a company full of very, very talented, very, very good cloud experts. And so we, this will also be our target group. So we also need to deliver the means in order for our customers to solve individual complex problems with our application. And there's then, this means we will not just simplify our applications, but also simplify our application runtime, but also give a lot of opportunities and options in order to configure our runtime in a way that you personally need in order for your application to run the best. How can we achieve this? One big part of our extend vision is also to really work together with the whole Cloud Foundry community that is currently pushing hard to build up future Cloud Foundries based on Kubernetes. And currently, we are not based on Kubernetes. As I said, we have the Boschlaude as an orchestrator and Diego as a kind of Docker in order to wrap our virtual machines and in order to deliver everything on those runtimes for our customers to run their applications. In the future, we want to work together with the Cloud Foundry community in order to base also our Cloud Foundry on Kubernetes. So you can then use the flexibility of Kubernetes, but have a base configuration, an opinionated base configuration of the Cloud Foundry already on top, so that you just have to configure, or you can just configure those specific parts that are interesting for you personally. And that's also one of the big challenges that we want to solve in the future. So with that, it took a bit longer because of the live demo, but hopefully you're still all here, you're still all listening, interested, and you still have some questions for me. So thanks for your attention, and any questions I can answer for you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dominik. Very interesting insights and also quite well presentation from my side. Yeah, and as Dominik asked, now is your chance to ask any questions which you have. And yeah, we already have the first two collected. And if you are ready, Dominik, let's talk about the first question from Song Su. And he asked how to monitor the crash events in App Console. And is it possible to make notification to Microsoft Teams if any instance is crashed in STACKIT Cloud?
Yeah, sure. The Cloud Foundry itself also has an notification service beneath, so that you definitely get notifications. For example, we personally, as the platform owners, also have Opsgenie that alerts us directly if anything goes wrong. So this notification service there is a notification service within our Cloud Foundry instances that you can use in order to get alerted when something goes wrong. In the future versions, currently also part of our stabilize is updating our Cloud Foundry instances to the to the newest levels. And in future or in versions that are already released, we are also introducing a lot of more monitoring than we currently have. It's part of our a bit part of our stabilize, but also part of our simplify process on creating more and easier monitoring dashboards and alerting tools in order for you to get more insights in your application.
Okay, thank you very much for answering the first question. Then we have another one from Marcel, and Marcel wants to know, are there any plans for authentication service to further increase developer experience?
Sorry, I didn't get the last one.
No problem. He asked, are there any plans for authentication service to further increase the developer experience?
Mm-hmm. The whole authentication, as you've seen, is done with our UAA. That one big component within the Cloud Foundry stack. We are able to use, or we are using this UAA as an IDP. So we are able to extend the users on our UAA with the IDPs of other customers. So for example, if one big customer would want to register against our application with or our application platform with their own users, they could just register their their LDAP against our UAA and so on. So yeah, it is definitely possible to customize and work a lot in the scope of the UAA with different authentication magic things.
Okay, good to know. And then we have the third and so far last question for now. And Harsha wants to know, are there any plans to include AI training and deployment in the future?
Yeah, definitely. We are looking, again, if you look at the extend part, this is really the big vision step, or the big pillar where we start to introduce a lot of fancy stuff. For example, we already have some concepts about a task scheduler to enable serverless functions on our Cloud Foundry. And as you know, our Schwarz IT is becoming more and more familiar with data engineering and more creative. How we can best use our data as Europe's biggest retailer in a way that benefits our customers the most. We definitely are also looking at how we can help in these processes, and yeah, we are definitely looking at some concepts, but there's nothing that is 100% fixed for it yet. So you just have to wait a bit more to see what the future of our AppCloud brings to you.
Okay, so we will see how the future is going on with STACKIT. And yeah, about our meeting today, I can't see any more questions. And yes, therefore, I would like to thank you again very much, Dominik, for this interesting insights. And I would also like to thank you to every participant on this on our STACKIT Meetup today. Thank you very much for joining us, and we really hope you enjoyed our meeting. And we, of course, would be very happy if you write us your feedback into our YouTube comments, and also if you subscribe our channel. Then, yeah, thank you very much. Have a nice evening and see you.